All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kennedy, and I'm just going to talk about design systems. Yeah. So the theme for this evening talk was the future of software development, and it actually marries up with my talk, the future of QA in design systems, accessibility at its core. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about design systems lately. Yeah, I can see you smiling. It's an interesting topic, isn't it? Yeah. It's quite a niche kind of thing in tech at the minute. And if you look at the development, software development space, we're getting to a point where design system is going to be at the core of every digital product. I'm going to start with this analogy about design systems because I'm sure quite a few people are not aware of what design system is. So, example, you've got a bag of Lego bricks. It comes in different colors, different sizes. If you keep that bag of Lego bricks to a kid, what do you think they come up with? All sorts of things. They are creative, isn't it? If you give it to an architect, what do they use the Lego bag of bricks to do? To design their concept of building some high skyscrapers, shard, all the big architectural designs. And then if you give it to a normal person like me, I'm just gonna throw it in the bag. I don't need to use it. Yeah. So design system basically is a collection of reusable components, patterns, tokens, design guidelines that helps us to build an accessible digital product. Now, accessibility, when we come to accessibility, right. So again, let me go back over there. So it's a collection of reusable components, tokens, and patterns. And what does it do? It ensures consistency across product and teams. How many of us have had access to a digital product and then you move from one part of the digital product to another part and the button or the link is totally different? You can see a lot of nodding here. What we're missing there? Consistency. Now, if you're using any sort of assistive technology, so assistive technologies is a sort of tools that are being used by people with disability. I'll come to that, I'll talk more about that, but when we talk about disability, we always think about, you've not got your wheelchair, you've got not got arms and stuff like that. We have different kinds of disabilities. So we've got neurological, cognitive, we've got a physical disability as well. But this, we're looking at the cognitive and neurological disabilities. If I tell you that I'm disabled, what's my disability? Anyone can point it out to me? I've got a disabled sight, yeah. I'm wearing glasses. If I take off my glasses, I can barely see anyone at the back there. So this is an assistive technology, glasses. Now, if I take off my glasses and I cannot read anything on a digital product, then that digital product, has what? Failed the accessibility. And why is accessibility very important? We'll come to that. Now, as a QA, QAs have, we are transforming from being a reactive to proactive. And the role of QA within accessibility is changing really fast. Now, first of all, as a QA, you're not just going to sit there waiting for bugs, picking out bugs. No, gone are those days. What do? You champion accessibility and usability. So from the onset, when the product is even in inception, you as a QA, you're right at the top there, speaking with the product owners. How many product owners do we have in the house? I know you guys don't like being challenged, but that's the rules of QA. So QA before I was like, oh, QA will be the last person to even speak to. You go with the product owner, speak with the BA, technical BA, then speak with the dev and head of dev, and then deliver something, and then like, QA, you've got 2 minutes to test everything. Gonna those days, we actually start testing from the inception of the idea of the product. So you champion accessibility and usability. What's usability? Accessibility is the ability to be able to use any digital product wherever you are, whatever your cognitive disability, your neurological disability. But what is the usability? The usability is the ability to use that digital product on different devices. So there are some digital products that when you use it on mobile, it's absolute crap, unless you on desktop. You've not met the accessibility and usability context there. What does the design system does as well? And as a QA, you ensure reusability and flexibility of components. I was currently working on a project, and we had another client who I was going through one of their digital presence. And what I noticed was that the links, the backlink on one of the pages, if you go to the next page, it's the same link, but it's not as flexible as the other ones because we use the assistive technology to tap through the product. It gets trapped. So we have something called keyboard trap when you use your keyboard to navigate through a page. Now that is not flexible of the component because they've developed it in a way that it just stuck there. It doesn't do anything apart from what it asks it to do. But a component should be flexible because the flexibility is because we're using on different tech stack. Web component normally work on Angular, JS, but you have a lot of digital product that works on what? On React Native, Next.js. It's a tricky one there, and I'll talk a bit more about that. Third point, you maintain visual regression tests using Playwright, Percy, and obviously with AI. Playwright will write all your tests for you with a blink of an eye. So you don't have to worry about that, but make sure that that test signifies a real human problem. We are getting to a point where a lot of people use AI to write tests as QA professionals, and they are not real. So the other day, myself and one of my colleagues were talking about it. What I tend to do is, AI write me a test for this, then I take that test, put it in my framework, run it. If it fails, it's wrong. You modify that test. You don't just pick it straight and put it in your framework. You modify that test for a real life scenario. And that's what I tend to do. And you prevent break changes in automation, similar to what I said, what I just talked about. And then you validate the component functionality across browser device. So currently, on the project I'm working on, I had to rewrite the whole test process. And in accordance to the WCAG 2.2 and the European Accessibility Law, which I'll touch more about that. There are specific browser, device, OS combination that you need to test your digital product against to make sure that they conform to the accessibility rules and laws. But most people do not do that. So they test on one device, one browser, OS combination. It works fine, that's perfect. Oh yeah, let's push it out. Remember what I said? QA always has 2 minutes to test something that devs use 5 hours to build. It's not possible. So that's something that we need to, as a QA, you need to champion, make sure that you validate a component across those browser device combination. Yeah, so I said I'll talk about the accessibility. So 1 in 5 users, according to the national statistics, 1 in 5 users in the UK has disability. And like initially when I was talking about disability, we always think about physical disability, something that you can see, but we forget about the neurological cognitive. So you have people who are blind and they use different tools such as Braille to read. You have text. You have people with this color blindness. So if 1 in 5 in the UK has disability, then how many of us in this room have some sort of disability? What's the percentage there? 20%, isn't it? So 20% of us have some sort of disability. Accessibility matters because it's required under the Equality Act of 2010 and the European Accessibility Act and the WACC Act 2.2. The European Accessibility Act came into force on the 25th of June this year. Now the consequences of not meeting that is that you get fined for €1,000 per person per issue. So if you're a product owner, good luck with that. Making sure that your product, your digital presence across the EU and the UK meets the European Accessibility Act. A lot of companies are now fighting with their lawyers to make sure that things don't come out. So there are NDAs being written, flying around here and there. I'm not going to mention names, but very reputable companies, big companies. I can see some of you are smiling. Maybe you've had some NDAs coming to you, but that's how serious it is. And it's not being talked about a lot. But the reason why it's not being talked about a lot is accessibility up to the last couple of years, 5 years, was like, oh, a nice to have. No, it's not nice to have. It's an integral part of software development. And if you're going to scale your business, your product out there, you need to start embracing design system and accessibility. Why does it matter? Inclusive design improves overall usability. Like I said earlier on, you're talking about these different devices, different browser operating systems. You should be able to use the digital product across all these devices, regardless. So we come to the testing. We've got keyboard navigation, screen readers, color contrast, dynamic content, and semantics. Keyboard navigation. If you're able to go for a digital product, able to tap through, and all the interactive elements are highlighted, then that's a good sign that that product is accessible. But an interactive element, any example of interactive element, anyone want to give me an example of interactive element on a digital product or a website?
A button.
A button? Yeah. Another?
Input.
Input? Yeah. A link. So those are interactive elements at any part of the digital presence that you have to actually interact with. So you have to click on it, you have to write a text, put something in there. That's interactive element. Now if you cannot tap through an interactive element, you fail, because what happens is not everybody who can see. Blind, tap through, using screen readers, which reads out the interactive element that they have highlighted. They say, right, you're on the bottom, so you know to click. So if it's not able to interact, focus on that interactive element, then it's failed. And somebody cannot use that digital product. Color contrast, color blindness, self-explanatory. You've got to test against different color contrast background. Dynamic content, you've got the model behavior. So this presentation, I did it a couple of weeks back. Model, we don't use models again. So models are, when you go on Amazon, or it's Amazon, I'm not sure Amazon is the right one to use, but some websites, you get big banner, accept cookies. That's a model. Now models are being they are getting faded away because they are not accessible. Because if you use screen reader or keyboard navigation, you cannot navigate through that. You cannot say yes unless you actually click. So models are not being used. But dynamic content, you need to test that, make sure that as it's changing, like if you have a loading button, which is dynamic content, the screen reader can still read it and you can still navigate through that. And then you've got semantics. So semantics, proper HTML and landmark structure. So we're talking about when you're writing the HTML for those code, the developers here, especially the front-end developers, you need to set your code properly for the component to work. If you do not write it properly, it's not going to work here. It's not like back-end where you throw anything. And as long as you connect some API, you're good. Your front end is different. How do we integrate QA and accessibility into our CI? GitHub Actions, AWS. I've used Azure, I've used Google and AWS. My preference, I'll leave it to myself, but yeah, that's one of the ways to integrate into your CI, visual snapshot. So currently our framework, we use Playwright, and we have a visual regression where it takes all the screenshots of the focus color, the interactive elements, the screen reader, sequence, and everything. So we've got over 10,000 screenshots. Anytime we run, gets us all the screenshots, make sure that it's exactly what we want. Nothing's changed. We are still meeting the accessibility guidelines. And one thing I want to say is, yeah, using the automated checks, so AI, AX, EQ, there are some really new, good technologies out there. There's one I'm currently evaluating, which is called Evinced. It's AI-based. It's really, really good. Check it out for devs, for QAs, even for designers as well. It does run through your designs and give you some feedback. So those are good, and like with AI, it's in everything. You've got to just leverage AI into your workflow and it to do some good stuff for you. Then you still have the manual testing. Yeah, screen reader, there are some technology out there that you can automate some part of screen reader, but you cannot totally automate it. So if it does that, you've got assistive labs, does some sort of automation. You've got the Axe core, the enterprise level, does some sort of automation. But you can never rule out the human part in QA. So anybody that thinks that AI will replace human beings in QA, it's a lie. It's never going to happen. Because if you know what AI, it's not everything that AI actually gives us that is valid. Especially when you go into AI, we have the biased coding. If I'm an AI engineer, whenever I put a program here and say, like, give me this results every time somebody put this prompt, then I'm being biased, and the ethical aspect. So you still need QA. So you do have the keyboard navigation, the screen readers, using voice. The screen readers, you have NVDA, which comes with Windows. VoiceOver comes with iOS and Mac. TalkBack comes with Android. These are technologies built into these devices. So when you get a chance, try and activate them and use them on any of your digital product that you're kind of working on. Just have a feel of what we're talking about. What are the industry experts saying about the future of design system? It's becoming critical for scaling design and development across large organizations. And the role of QA will expand. Ensure design system evolve in accessibility, compliance, and performance in mind. A small shift towards accessible and inclusive components. Design system has become integral part of multi-platform consistency. And we focus on speed, automation and scale, and future-ready design system will act as a living ecosystem. Now I'm going to talk a bit more about the third point here. So focus on speed. Anyone within the tech space, especially software development, we're always talking about time to market, because there's a lot of investment. Stakeholders are always looking for their ROI. The best way to match that is just build a design system, and you will be surprised how quick you can deliver quality, accessible, scalable product to the market. It's very important. Anyone who's working in a design system will attest to that. I just want to give you a bit of some of the top 10 successful design systems. You can see some multinational companies. I went to a Google workshop recently in London about their design system, and some of the things they're doing is amazing. Apple has got one of the best as well. IBM, Salesforce, Airbnb. And that's the future of technology, of software development. If these multinational companies are using design system, then everybody at some point in time we're all going to jump on it. So I did talk about web component working on different tech stack. So you've got React, Angular, Vue, Vanilla, JS. That's what makes building a design system, web component, more versatile, that it can work across different tech stack. Currently, if you want a particular kind of feature, your front-end developers will have to custom build that feature for that product, and you cannot use that custom built component anywhere else across the digital product. But when you use a web component, Angular based, it can go on any of these tech stack. They encapsulate functionality, styles, and behavior in consistent packages. Custom element standard enables reusability and helps the fragmentation in multinational and multi-tech organizations. So I don't want to go into the technical part of the shadow DOM, custom element, and if you're a front-end developer, you understand that. But in short, what it does is it can work across different tech stack. And that's what you want to do. So if you're working for large organizations where different parts of the business have different tech stack from the rest of the business, then you want to look at your component. So I'm currently working for a client who the backend is, you've got parts of it in Angular, parts in React 17, some are even React 15. Now React 18 and Next.js, you can use web component on this tech stack, but React 15 does not allow you to use web component on that. And that's just one company, but different tech stack across the business. Benefits to the organization: faster feature delivery with reusable tested components, fewer bugs and accessibility issues in product. Legal compliance and inclusive experience. That is very important, and you're talking about better collaboration between dev and design. My final takeaway, this is keyway in design systems are proactive and not reactive. Accessibility is not optional anymore. It's required, it's a legal requirement, it's essential. And you treat each component like a mini product. So you test it, you document it, you trust it. Thank you. And if you have any other question, you can send it to me through the slider. Thank you, guys.